Korea has a history of being influenced by other cultures. First, China and Confucianism. Later, Japan and modernity. More recently, the influence has been global, and also much more reciprocal. Indeed, Korea has been exporting its own culture throughout the world since the 90s. Korean soft power is becoming such a thing that there's now a name for it, Hallyu, which roughly translates as Korean wave. More and more Korean exports have been surfing this wave. World-famous K-pop groups like BTS, traditional foods like kimchi. Lately, Korean cinema has joined the party. Except if you've been living in a cave for the last 2 years, it's highly unlikely that you haven't heard about Parasite. Parasite is a movie directed by Bong Joon-ho, which came out in 2009. It's a born and bred Korean movie. The director, the actors, and the locations are all South Korean. Parasite was the first Korean movie to obtain the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Festival. Even more amazing, at the 2020 Oscars ceremony, Parasite won 4 Oscars, making Bong Joon-ho the first director to equal the Walt Disney record of 1954. The plot features 2 Korean families, the well-off Parks and the impoverished Kims. The Kim daughter manages to become employed by the Parks by faking being a highly qualified art teacher. Then she gets her brother hired as an English teacher, her mother as a housekeeper, and her father as a chauffeur. The whole family literally infiltrates the house, like parasites. I won't spoil the end, but basically, the Kims are not the only parasites in the Park's house, and the situation becomes quite messy. Parasite conquered both the domestic and foreign box office at a record speed, and received singing praise by critics all around the world. Allegedly, this huge success is owed to its message. With a rather dark sense of humor, the movie paints the picture of 2 families at the extreme ends of the economic spectrum. Class division is a worldwide phenomenon, especially strongly felt in Korea, which ranks 12th in the list of countries with the widest gap between the rich and the poor. But mostly, Parasite is a case study of how Korean culture can spread way outside of the peninsula's borders. After the movie came out, millions of people of Korean and foreign nationalities started visiting the locations in Seoul that appeared in the movie. The staircase, the tunnel, even the Worry supermarket. Dozens of recipes on how to cook the instant noodle dish that the Parks eat one night as comfort food have popped on Instagram. The black blindfolds that covered the eyes of the protagonists on the movie poster have been used and reused all over the social media. Even the little jingle that the Kim daughter sings at one point has colonized the global village. And believe it or not, most of these symbols are actually direct ambassadors of Korean culture. The jingle is inspired from a pre-existing traditional song that originates from a remote Korean island. A bit more far-fetched, perhaps, blindfolds are far more common in the Korean culture, since they're widely used by K-pop stars. As for the ramen, even if it can't be considered a strictly Korean dish, its Asian origins cannot be denied. Though utterly Korean, Parasite is also clearly designed to please the Western viewer. The Japanese rather than Korean architecture of the Park house, the passion of the Park son for American Indians, the fact that speaking English is considered a sign of wealth, and the social gap universal theme. All these less Korean and more Western items show that the director wanted to appeal to the global audience. So Parasite blends both Korean and Western culture to convey a message that viewers from all nationalities can and did relate to. This movie definitely is a great example of how the West and the East can mutually influence each other. In its wake, Squid Game also charmed the global audience, How will Korea seduce us next?